And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight's show is a real treat for everyone. I have been, in full transparency, having a lot of conversations with our guest, and it is all about the high vibe. So, you guys are going to have a blast tonight. A lot of great information coming your way. And so, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my amazing, talented, super funny, in the best way, full of energy, Nikki Girard.
Thank you, Michael, so much. And first of all, I just want to give gratitude to you and to all your viewers and everybody who has a hand in any part of anything that brings all of this together. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to have me on the show and allow me to share some of the insights that I have and help people to rise, because my whole branding is the high AF advantage, and it's about understanding ourselves, our insides, right? So, our mind, our heart, and brain coherence, the energy within us, and how we can elevate our frequency, how we can understand how to manifest and be able to embody the energy and frequency of that which we want to manifest so we can embody it now, right? And so, one of the things that I'm going to talk about is my new book that came out. So, hello, everyone. So, again, Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate it. My name is Nikki Girard, and I'm a six-time, oh my goodness, I can't even speak. Hold on.
Take a deep breath. It's okay.
I know, because of us doing, like, we were hooking up the technical stuff, and it's the only thing that gets me nervous. And I accidentally had clicked out of my stuff that actually just had it where I could read off my stuff, because there's a lot of stuff and I don't want to actually like say it wrong. But in any case, yeah, so I'm a six-time award-winning visionary entrepreneur, exponential transformation and manifestation expert. I've also have a six-time number one international best-selling author as well. I have a couple of other number ones, but I do have six. And all of them that I've been in, they've been different anthologies that I've done. And this latest one has been my first solo book, which is called The High AF Advantage, Your Quantum Core Blueprint to Success. And it takes us through the different aspects of what we need to understand within ourselves to be able to connect those quantum dots. So from our heart and brain coherence, like I said, our energy frequency, understanding how we can raise our frequency, and then understanding the subconscious mind and how our emotions, thoughts, and behaviors or inactions are mostly controlled by the subconscious. And so when we talk about the different aspects, it just breaks it down into everything from intuition to reprogramming the subconscious mind, so we can take out limiting beliefs and things like that and replace them with, high vibrational positive things. And that way it does increase our vibration, but it also switches up what we believe and the limitations that we have on ourselves, right? Because if we believe, for example, that we are not good enough, and we replay that in our mind, we have the emotions to match that, and our actions match that. It's like a trickle effect. So there's a program there if that's a repeated thing coming up. And so one of the aspects that my book goes through is how can we actually switch that up? So instead of us not feeling worthy or not feeling good enough, we can actually rewire our subconscious mind. So rewire the neural pathways and create the new program that actually is to our benefit, instead of, self-sabotaging things in our life and things like that, right? Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds like what I learned in timeline therapy of going back to the root cause of what has set this pattern into motion, rewriting it, taking the positive out of it instead of the negative, and then you trying to think of the word, implant it into your timeline. So if it was like a past life, every life after has the positive benefit now, and it changes your perspective in the here and now.
When we shift our awareness, then we have raised our consciousness and our perspective. And so think of it like each time we shift and go a little higher, we get a wider perspective. So we can begin to be more observers instead of, victims of circumstance of our lives, right? When we understand how these things actually got implemented. So when you're talking about that, it's like, yeah, when we're talking about the catalyst of, what caused something, because something we can have something be the cause, and then we have all these other symptomatic things as, extended symptoms on top of the catalyst, right? So yeah, we have to get to the root cause. Otherwise, it's like, if a dam was breaking, and the concrete's all cracking and everything, would you want to repair it so the water doesn't rupture through? Or would you go, oh, I'm going to grab a Band-Aid and put that on the concrete, and maybe that'll hold it, right?
That depends on how strong that Band-Aid is.
That's right. But that's what I mean. It's like we're putting a Band-Aid on something and going, oh, but look, it's leaking through. Let's put a Band-Aid there. But it's like, well, why is it cracking in the first place, right? We didn't have a strong enough foundation. And it's not because we are not strong enough. It's because of the identity that we associate with. And that's based on our subconscious mind for the majority. And I'll explain that because all of our emotions, 95% of our thoughts, emotions, actions, or inactions in life are controlled by the subconscious mind. About 5% of it is controlled by our conscious mind. So us talking right now, you strategically thinking, writing, communicating with people, all these things, we're using our conscious mind to do that. And so think of beliefs as a habit, right? So if you believe something to be true, okay, so if someone believed that they were not worthy of money, let's say, okay, to make more money, they're like, I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough for that. Like, oh, no, that's not for me. I can't do that, right? Well, they have probably a program that got imprinted, and programs get imprinted from when we're a child, okay? Because when we are born until about the age of like 5 to 7, our subconscious are like, we pick up information from all around us. So from our family, from society, from TV, from advertising, all these different things. And we're told, oh, this is what you need to believe. This is a value you need, right? So our perception and what we believe to be true is kind of shaped that way. And our subconscious at that time when we're young, think of it like being a sponge and just going and just soaking up every little freaking thing it can soak up, okay? And so mom and dad fighting, oh, but then they say they love each other. Oh, so fighting equals love. Okay. Chaos, danger, it's not safe to talk about emotions because fights break out, right? So patterns begin to form and behave. And so in that span between, like I said, up to about the age of 5 to 7 is when the subconscious is like soaking it up with no filters. So if someone says fighting and beating each other up is love, and that's what they see on a repeated basis, so something that's like repetitory, like, then that's going to be an imprint in their subconscious. So I'm going to pause there just for 1 second. And so from the subconscious and the conscious mind, so the subconscious goes, hey, wait a minute. If that's the pattern and that's the way it happens every time, you know what? You only got 5% that you're using. Let me take the burden of that. I will think of that for you. You don't have to think about that anymore. I will do it automatically for you based on this imprint that fighting and yelling at each other, that's love. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Now, consciously, we have no flipping idea that this is going on under the surface. Okay? And to get a perspective, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, think of like one of those huge mountains, okay? And it's like a brown mountain, and it's got like a tiny, itty bitty little peak of snow at the very tippy top of it. Can you see that image? So it's like a triangular kind of mountain, and it's all brown and whatever it is, and the very tippy top is just a little tiny little bit of snow at the top. Well, that little itty bitty tippy top bit of snow, that's like our conscious mind. Us, like, we think we're so smart. That's our conscious mind, right? But under the surface, 95%, what's going on autopilot based on these programs, which are habits, beliefs, value systems, based on what got imprinted, and then added to that is different traumas in our lives and things like that, right? Because no matter, we have peaks and valleys in life, and if we're human, we're going to hit a few of them up and down, right? It's cyclical. We're always going to have a little bit of up and down, and it's about having the balance in between. And so when these subconscious programs get in there, it's below our conscious awareness, so we don't even know that they're there. So we might get into a relationship and not realize that we're a dismissive avoidant because of the way that we learned about love and that, having emotions, people are yelling and stuff. It's not safe to express emotions, or we were ridiculed for it, or you know what I mean? So things that were patterns that got repeated. So if a child was told that they're not worthy, they're not worthy, they're not worthy. Okay, an example of this is there was a study done, and I can't quote where, it was many, many years ago, but there was a study done, and they worked with a lot of different people, and it came down to, they were looking at how many times on average a child between the ages of 3 to 5 years old had heard that they, pardon me, I really don't like this word, but this was the word, that they are stupid, or what they are doing is stupid, 3 to 500,000 times by the time they were 3 to 5 years old.
I believe it.
Now, that is a repeated pattern. And so when that person is growing up, that program is in there. And so now they will see life through the prism of that automatic program. So, for example, if they thought that they were, not smart, right? And they were looking to get a promotion at their job, but then they're like, oh, but I'm not smart enough. I'm never going to get it. Even if I apply, I'm not going to get it because I'm not smart enough. There's like 10 other people that would get it before me, and they talk themselves out of it. And why is that? It's because of the imprinted program that when they have a life situation where they would normally step up, the program is going to play just like a movie. A movie that you've seen a million times. If you press play in the first minute, it's going to be everything exactly the same in the first minute. No matter how many times you watch that movie, it will be the same in that spot. And so different programs in our subconscious is like that. So if we don't feel worthy, and that's a repeated thought pattern and behavior as associated to that and emotions, then chances are there's a program in there. So somewhere along the lines, we ended up feeling or being told that we were unworthy. Because sometimes we can be neglected and feel like we're not worthy enough for someone's time. Does that make sense?
It does, but something that I've learned from personal experiences, it can be past live and or on another quantum timeline
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
nothing in this world that on the timeline you're on now suggests this possibility, but you have it, and so you have to unprogram it.
Well, yeah, like it's just that the subconscious mind works on autopilot, right? So if we do things to be able to work more with our subconscious, then we can pretty much reprogram our subconscious to all the things that we want, right? So feeling worthy, being confident, all of those things, right? And so it's just a matter of switching those up. And it's just a lot of people don't understand how to take the knowledge and integrate it so that way they actually can have the consistency of being able to switch that up. Because what's actually taking place in the subconscious when people actually do that switch is there's new neural pathways that get formed when we create the new imprint for ourselves, right? We choose what we want, so we want to feel worthy, so we're going to do work to imprint the worthiness. And so the neural pathways of the feeling unworthy start to narrow. Think of it that way. And the neural pathways that are expanding, okay, towards this new imprint. So the more consistency someone puts into what they're doing in that process, then the quicker it actually happens. And you're right that it can be not just from this particular, plane of existence that we're experiencing collectively here. But yes, there can be different things that are tied in multiple timelines and ancestral and generational. But when something heals, it can heal through the timeline across in terms of quantum entanglement, right? When one thing changes in one area, it would change in another, and that's why a lot of talk about the breaking the generational curse and things like that, right? When someone actually is able to work through those particular energies and things like that, like you said. So whether it's from this timeline or others, but I know you know more about this stuff than I do, but in terms of there's ways in which to be able to work through those things, right? Like you've got more experience on that.
True, and I'm not sure if I have more experience, but I'm not going to compare to see who has more. But
Well, no,
one
I mean just
question,
in having the knowledge of like a little bit more of the ancestral and stuff like that. Like
oh,
I
that,
don't
yeah,
normally talk as much on that side of it. Like I do a little bit, but I'm just saying like I think that you would be a little bit more insightful on that because I think you have just
okay,
know a
yeah,
little
I
bit more
get you
on that.
now.
Like I'm just saying I wouldn't have as much expertise to kind of like explain deeper on those particular points. That's what I mean.
Right, and so I have an interesting question for you.
Sure.
What was your aha moment that set you on this path and discovering all of this information that you've collected and written about? I think people would like to hear and know where you got your start, because I think that is something that makes people more relatable, is when they know that they have something in common.
Absolutely. Well, for me, my original, um, I guess, awareness of the fact that I was tuning into my intuition and things like that was about the age of 2 or just before 2. At the time, my dad used to do meditation, and he was into things like with the consciousness and things like that. And so I always would stay out of the room, but I would watch. I would just patiently just stand there. So I'm not like, kicking around like a little kid would at like a year and a half, 2 years old. Whenever he was doing his meditation like that, I would always just stand and just calmly watch and everything. And when he got up and he was coming out of the room, that would only be the time that I would like run up to him or something like that. And at the time, I remember specifically having thoughts of, wow, that's like, it just like, not like I didn't have the words at that time, but in terms of the feeling that I felt was just like, that's peace. Do you know what I mean? That's peaceful. That's like the energy just felt calm and very balanced. And then by the time I was about 4 years old, I had decided that everything is energy and we'll be able to understand more of it through mathematics and geometry, and that I was going to help the world. So that's what I used to say at 4 years old.
You
And
have
then,
got to be a star seed.
and at 4 years old, I could tell the difference between people's energy, what they were saying, and their actions. Like I could tell that they were incongruent, that they, you know what I mean? So I was like a human lie detector as well, so I would know if someone's telling me the truth or not.
Yeah, the word wouldn't match the energy of the actions.
That's right. They might say one thing, they're thinking another. Their energy is like all kerfuffled because they're all anxious and everything. So it's like it was all incongruent. And so at that age of 4, I remember thinking, like, I want to know why that's not the same. I didn't have the terminology then, but I was like, I want to know why that the energy feels different, because I knew that I was intuitive, but I just didn't know not everybody was tapping into it, even though everybody has the ability to tap into it. You know what I mean? Like not everybody is aware of it, right?
Right.
But I already knew that I was. I just assumed everybody else was fully tapped in. But and then kind of like around like 6, 7, and 8, I remember always taking out library books on science stuff and Einstein and the cosmos and photosynthesis and different animals and dinosaurs and ancient stuff. And so I decided I was going to go into nursing in the medical field. I did 1 year of that and I went, no, this doesn't feel like it's supposed to be what I'm doing. And so I got out of that. I had stayed in medical probably for about 10 years, doing different things from nursing to, I worked in like physiotherapy for a while and personal trainer, different things like that, lab tech and all of that. So I, worked in and out of the hospital in different clinics and things like that. But ultimately, and then, and then I had my family and stuff like that. And so I was kind of like, debating, and then what I was going to do, stay in medical or do something else. Eventually, the marriage broke down and I kind of went on my way. But the whole time, even through all my studies, like when I was going to college, I was like working through the day or through the evening. Then I was studying, so I'd get home at midnight. I'd study till 3 in the morning, sleep till 4 in the morning, get up, be ready and out the door by 5 in the morning, because I had lecture by 7 in the morning. You did lecture till about noon, and then you were in the hospital for about 12 hours. And then, and then you go back and you do it all over again. And so eventually I just kept up studying in all the things that my intuition just said, connecting, the different internal systems between the mind, the heart, our nervous system, and, like our endocrine system, like all the different systems, because every aspect of our environment and also the way in which we think, so even like what we eat, what we think, the vibration that we're vibrating at makes a difference in all the things that we do, how we feel, how we manifest, right? Whether we have more illness or less illness in our life and things like that. So, and like I said, the main thing is like the different programs that get put in there. And the thing is that we don't know what we don't know, but once we do know, then we can go, oh, okay, now we know this. We have awareness now. Once we have awareness of something, we can make a choice to do something different that's actually going to benefit us and raise our vibration and create a more positive pattern in our subconscious. So when we get into another situation, right, let's say that promotion again, well, instead of inside their mind with emotions and thoughts and everything and the energy, which would be a lower frequency of saying, oh, I'm not good enough, I couldn't get that, they would, the new program would be, of course I'm worthy of it and I'm good enough. Of course I am. I'm skilled. I'm a hard worker. I'm going to apply for that. I'm going to get that job. Do you know what I mean? It's two completely different paths, and it's just because of which program is in there. Like when we brush our teeth, right? Think of like which hand do you use to do the back and forth or the up and down, like the actual brushing of it. Do you know which hand you use?
I use my dominant hand.
Which is, you're right?
The right hand.
Okay. Now, do you know that that's a program in your subconscious? You could be thinking of your bills and still be brushing your teeth. Your subconscious knows the program of what you do, which hand you use, how you do it, and everything else. Think of when you're driving. Do you ever think of something else when you're driving, but you still get home? Did you think about, oh, I have to turn at this corner, I have to signal right here, I have to do this, check my rear view? No, you're thinking about stuff, right? But you still pull into your driveway, don't you? But you weren't thinking of every turn and everything you were doing. The driving, once you got used to it, your subconscious went, hey, if you're going to do that all the time, I'm going to remember it for you. And I'm going to do it automatic. You don't even have to think about it, man. I'm below the surface. Unless you dive deep into me, don't worry about it. I'll do it for you. And the thing is like I said, we don't know what we don't know. And if we don't know that there's programs in there that are literally self-sabotaging our lives, right? We're not taking opportunities. Maybe we're not getting into relationships because of the way we feel about ourselves, this, that, and the other, promotions, or we don't start the business, or, there's passions in our life and things that people want to do for, whether it's business or personal, right? But these are things that get in there, and we just don't realize that they're there until we start having that awareness, and then we can do different things to actually switch that up, which switches up our life, and we increase our vibration, and we have that heart and brain coherence. Because when we have that internal coherence, the frequency that we vibrate at is going to be higher. When we understand how to manifest, we have to embody the frequency, the feeling, the emotion, and everything as if we've already received it. So the gratitude and the happiness and the joy and everything. Because we need to embody the frequency before we receive it. Think of like when we send out a frequency, think of like when you send someone love, like you're like, oh, they're feeling sick, you're going to send them some love and light, right? Right. Well, you don't like ball it up in a box and throw it across the world. You do it energetically, right?
Energetically put it in a box, yeah.
Well, exactly, right? But that's what I mean, though. You didn't physically take a box and put it in the mailbox with that love and light. Like, you sent it energetically in a gift box.
But that's what I mean. Idea, though.
I'm sorry?
So that's a good idea, though.
It
Send a
is.
box with it through the post, see what it feels like when it gets there.
Well, I thought about like when I've had a few people ask me to do autographs of my book for them, right? And so one of the things that I'm going to offer people when I do that is to do some energy work to have like an imprint of a high vibration. So every time that they're reading the book or they think about it or they're doing anything that they did from learning in the book, they'll have that beautiful high vibration with them. So,
That's a good idea.
yeah. So that's
So
one thing that I thought of.
I have an interesting theory for you then.
Okay.
Because we were talking about, being programmed to use the right hand. What if I use both hands or use the left hand? Is that breaking the program?
Think of it like a pattern interrupt. But again, the same as how the first pattern got in there, we need to do it on like with repetition and consistency. So for example, right, like if integration, it's like the shorter the span you can do it in, right? So instead of doing an integration program like over, or let's put it this way, right? If someone wants to go to the gym and get fit, right? But let's say they went once a month for the whole year, and at the end of the year went, well, why didn't it work? Right? Instead of the regiment that they would go maybe every week and things like that, right? And so we have to do it on a consistent basis so that way we're creating those new neural pathways. Otherwise, we can slip back into the old program. So until that new program gets set in, and depending on the level of people and things like that, for some people, it can happen pretty quick with the consistency. For other people, it could be even a few weeks. For some people, it could be a few months. But there's always different programs that kind of relate to each other. So, for example, if people are not feeling worthy, they also may feel not good enough. They also may feel like they're not worthy of love because they don't feel worthy. Then they might also not, feel respect for themselves, not in a negative way, like they feel bad towards themselves, but maybe they feel like people don't respect them, so they're not worthy of respect. Does that make sense?
It does, and it explains the onion effect that
Mhm.
it's
Exactly.
layered, but it's not only is it layered, but it's the term we use the term comes out sideways. Like you could be thinking you've healed it, you're done with it, and then another situation comes up and you're like, how did this show up? Because I already worked on that.
Yep. That's the phrase. It's like, I've already worked on that one. I done that, been there, done that. I ain't doing that one again. And it's like, oh wait, I am. Like, but the thing is though, is that yeah, just like how an onion peels, think of it this way. As you get closer to the core of the onion, the deeper the emotional attachment to whatever it was that caused the betrayal or the unworthiness or whatever the thing is, okay? Not diminishing it, but without naming everything, right?
Right.
So, whatever our traumas are, because we could have different ones. We could have betrayal, we could have abandonment, we could have, all sorts of things. And so, think of it like the deeper the emotional attachment, the closer it is to the core of the onion. So the more layers you got to get that one worked out. So if it was deep betrayal and feeling like, you can't receive love and things like that, that's going to be probably multiple situations that someone has to experience in order to keep raising their awareness as they work through them. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the catalyst is what caused it when they were young. Okay, so whatever situation or what they learned that got imprinted, and that was the prism, the belief, and the value that they were bringing forward as if it's true. So if the child believed they were unworthy, it's a belief in the subconscious. Until the subconscious switches, we believe it to be true. So we identify with that. And so does that make sense that the deeper the emotional pull and attachment and trauma to that, that's like you're getting closer to the root, like to the center, of the onion. So sometimes we peel things back and we think, oh crap, that wasn't too bad. You know what I mean? And we don't see it keep coming back. But as those things that were more emotionally traumatic for us, or, like betrayal or something that was like difficult for us, because, different traumas, people are affected differently, right? Some people get through one thing better than another person, but then vice versa. You know what I mean? Like everyone's unique, and it's based on what our perspective is, what our upbringing was, and what we believe to be true, right?
Right.
So does that make sense, though?
It does.
So the more it hurts, you know that that's closer to the center of the onion, which means you're going to have to keep peeling and keep it going through different levels of shifting through that deeper emotional trauma or attachment. Make sense?
It does, and it raises a question for me.
Sure.
And it's a multi-part question, but
I love those. Oh, give it to me.
So when we notice patterns or programs that we want to change, how do we escape the matrix of those deals and understanding, how it's viewed, and break free from that limiting belief and stop the self-sabotage and all the barriers in front of us, bring them down?
Well, the programs in the subconscious that are, let's say, on a low vibration negative, right? Those we need to switch up to the positive. So we need to create those new neural pathways. And like I said, it's with consistency. So, for example, we can, if the thought that keeps coming up in our mind is, oh, I'm not worthy, when you are in awareness that you said that to yourself, allow yourself to give yourself empathy and compassion, light and love, that is not true, and reframe it to a positive phrasing of that. So if we thought, oh, we're not worthy, then we can switch it up to, yes, I am worthy. And I have many skills. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever to us feels empowering, we can use a phrase that to us is empowering. So the first thing is the awareness, right? Once we're aware of it, then we can notice, oh, wait, I just said that in my head. Or wait, I just said that out loud. I just said I wasn't worthy. Wait a minute. I'm in awareness of it. So basically, usually, like I said, we don't know what we don't know. Once we know, hey, like we're having this conversation, so there are programs in there. Oh, so if I consistently reframe it, okay, then we begin to break that pattern of going into the old thought. So think of it like this. When you first started to drive, think of how much attention you were putting to checking rear view, making sure you put the signal on, lock, like everything, right? So it's like kind of like in a hyper way, right? But once we begin to imprint the new things, so the new higher vibration thoughts and emotions, right? So we feel in gratitude and joy and things like that, we can embody that. Just like when we can think of a happy moment in our life, we imagine it, we can feel it. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between past and future. So if we see an image in our mind, So think of like a loved one, or a special birthday party that you were like having just a blast and everything, right? You can imagine that. You can feel that in your heart. You can feel that excitement, right? Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between whether you're experiencing it right now or it was 2 years ago. It doesn't know. And so, in the moment when we are aware that that thought or emotion came in, now we make the choice to reframe it, right? So we give compassion to ourselves because no, 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 we are worthy, right? So, give yourself a hug, you know, allow yourself the understanding that that's something that got in there, but it's not true. It was just repeated enough to get in there. That's all. And your subconscious thought it was doing you a favor by not allowing you to think about it, and it's just going to do it by itself. But that helped us to cope with the things when we were younger, but it doesn't serve us now because, if we avoid different things that would benefit us, if we're feeling in low vibration, then our frequency is going to be lower. So we're going to attract lower frequency opportunities, things like that, right? And so it goes away from what we want instead of towards what we do want. So essentially, yeah, working on those subconscious programs, switching up and reframing the way that we're talking to ourselves, the way that we're feeling, right? So we can take a moment to be in the present moment. We can take a few deep breaths. That helps us to get back into our body instead of our mind overthinking. If we focus on feeling into our heart, once again, we're in our body, and so we get out of the mind. So we can begin to just take a few deep breaths in the present moment, actually in awareness and present. Does that make sense?
It does, and it raises to me an interesting hypothetical question of we can see in ourselves self-sabotaging programs. We may not like what we're seeing and choose not to look at it, but we'll see it. What if we see it in someone else and they don't want to see it? What can we do to kind of, in a nice, friendly way, nudge them and be like, hey, maybe you want to look at this?
Well, the thing is that everyone is at a different level of awareness, a different level of perspective, different programs that they have in there. So, just like if you were trying to convince somebody of your opinion and they were like, no, man, I have my own opinion. You can have your opinion, but this is my opinion. I'm not changing my opinion. This is my opinion. Right? So, it's like, or if somebody has an addiction, right? Like maybe a family member has an addiction, and the family is saying, hey, you got to get some help, and the person is saying, I don't got a problem, right? They're in that denial part where they're like, I don't got a problem, but like you
Right.
said, they're self-aware, right? When they're let's say sober, okay, that hey, I shouldn't be doing this, but the program is in there, and so they continue to do the same action until, like, Einstein had said it best, right? The meaning of insanity is doing the same action over and over again and expecting a different result. So if the programs are the same programs, we're going to go through cycles of similar experiences, right? Because if we're not feeling worthy, we might get into relationships where we're not being respected, we're not being honored, and things like that. Does that make sense?
It does, and now I'm going to ask the same question of you with a twist.
Okay.
Because you know me, I have a metaphysical background, so we
Oh,
have different mindset of things than what we would say the mass consciousness probably has, and that is because I see the program in someone else, does that truly mean the program is still in me? Like a mirror effect? I see myself in that person, and that person sees themselves in me?
I would say yes, and could be no. It depends on the person and where they are. So if somebody had like an unresolved, let's say, like didn't feel worthy, but they were pretty confident in most things, but there were certain areas maybe with money and stuff or relationships, they didn't feel worthy of love and stuff. So maybe they're successful in business, but their friendships or their love interests, like it just never seems to go where they want it to go. Does that make sense?
It
Right?
does.
And someone else could have like an amazing relationship, but just can't keep a job or can't hold on to money or something like that. Do you see what I mean? Like where it just seems like every time they get money, something happens and they lose the money again. Because if the subconscious program, okay, believes that we can only make a certain amount, well, those programs are all going to be working in the background to create scenarios so you'll spend the money so it slips right through your hands. Do you know what I mean? Instead of if we have, so if we're in a scarcity money mindset, okay, then our frequency is lower. So we're, like I said, we would attract lower frequency people, opportunities, situations, relationships, friendships, things like that, right? And so when we're in a higher vibration, then again, it's going to attract that. And so if we have an unresolved issue, it can be where we are seeing it in someone else and we still have some of that to work out. Or it could be that someone has gone through that process and is able to recognize those patterns in other people more easily because they have that experience and maybe innate knowledge as well. Does that make sense?
It does. And so, what are ways that people can see the matrix and know that they are, making progress of breaking out of it and freeing their mind, so to speak, as to quote the movie?
Yeah, the main thing is to have heart and brain coherence, to be able to calm our nervous system. See, if our nervous system, like our body retains memory of all of those things that hold us back, all of those traumas, right? And so our nervous system is basically always looking for danger. Our ego is always looking to save our butt, okay? And so when we come up against a situation, the ego goes, hold on a second, I'll save you. And then it goes into the subconscious. It goes, hey, what do you got? And the subconscious is like, oh, here's the repeated pattern we always do in this situation. Here you go, press play, boop. And then even if the person didn't want to do something, they ended up doing it and afterwards went, man, I said I wasn't going to do that. Why'd I do that? Because it was the program and the subconscious was taken over. It was in autopilot, right? Does that make sense?
It does.
And so, so the heart and brain coherence, so bringing our nervous system back in line. So that way we can go into the present moment. So whether we do meditations, whether we do, in terms of like oh my goodness, sorry. It'll come back to me in just a second. Brainwave entrainment, or things that bring our brain waves down into a lower frequency. So anything that brings us into the present moment. So if there's music that you like to listen to, take a few moments and listen to a couple of songs you really like and just move your body. Moving your body will help to move the energy that's blocked in your body. That's one way. Another way, like I said, is being in the present moment. Anything that you can do to feel into either your breathing, your heart, or any of your senses, that will bring you into your body and bring you out of the thinking mind. Does that make sense?
It does.
And it allows our nervous system to go, oh, this is what calm is. This is nice. And so as we stay consistent doing that, then we begin to rewire, just like we rewire the neural pathways in the mind when we switch up those programs, we're also now matching and rewiring our nervous system at the same time. And because we're doing all of these things, and it's the positive emotions, the positive imprint of the new programs, the new habits that we're doing with it, right? Like we'd have to take physical action too, right? But we're also doing it in the higher vibrational frequency because we're going into the present moment. We're able to be in that calm. So we begin to, it's like think of training your nervous system to go back to the way it should be. So that way everything is in alignment. Our mind, our heart, because our heart has to believe in what we say we think we can do, but that is based on the subconscious program. So the subconscious goes, hey, heart, no, we don't have that program, man. It's not safe to even, like, don't even send your energy over here right now, man. We ain't ready for that. And the heart goes, oh, I don't believe it then. Okay, so I believe what the program is, not what I think I could have done. Oh, darn. Right? Does that make sense?
It does.
But if we switch up that program, then guess what? Our conscious mind goes, hey, can I do that? And the ego goes, hey, subconscious, what do we got in there that's repeated from the past? But we switched it, right? And then it goes, hey, man, she can do it. Of course she can do it. She's got the skill. She's got the grit. She never stops. She'll go until she gets it done. Man, she's got it going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So now your subconscious is on board with you, and because your subconscious is in the positive, and this is a new thing, and you do that alignment, right? You start getting into the present moment, and you start doing these things. You start aligning your heart and brain. When you start doing that, you increase your ability to manifest. You increase your ability to raise your frequency. Right? And you're embodying the gratitude and the good feelings and things like that in that present moment. Like I said, you rewire your mind. You connect and synchronize your heart because your heart has to believe what's going on in the subconscious. And based on what's in there, that's what it's going to believe too. So when you switch it up to something positive, now, and the heart's like, oh, let me see what the program is. Oh, wow, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I can get on board with this one. Now, heart and brain synchronized, right? Then you're doing this on a consistent basis, and you start to have a layered effect, a compounding effect. So you have compounding progress because you're building on that. And so you continue to raise your awareness, which increases your consciousness level, right? Which gives you a broader perspective. And doing these things on a consistent basis, you begin to, like I said, rewire your nervous system to be like back to normal, okay? And rewire the mind. So now your subconscious is on board. Your heart is going to match what the subconscious program is. And as you do that consistently, and like I said, embodying your manifestation as if you already have received it with the gratitude, the excitement, everything. And then take the action steps and embody the person who already received it. What is that person doing? What steps did they have to take to get that? But embody it as if you already have received it, because that, the frequency that we emanate the most is going to be whatever the consistent frequency is that we're putting out predominantly will be what the universe, given a little bit of time, is going to, like a mirror, just reflect it back to you. So if we send negative energy out to someone, woo! We wonder why we got a kick in the butt from the universe. It's like, because you sent some out. And so if we're in a low vibration, let's say a scarcity mindset with money, right? Well, the low vibration, let's say, on the money scale, is like a radio station. Let's say that's the country station. But you want the rock station. Well, it's a completely different frequency. You ain't even in the same time zone. Like you got a time warp somewhere else to get there. It's a different frequency. And so when we switch the mind, we elevate our frequency, we get into the present moment, we connect those quantum dots. That's how we do it, and we stay consistent. We take those actions, and that becomes the predominant frequency. So if we do that with a manifestation for money and we stay consistent, we're doing the steps, we're co-creators, so we need to take the action steps along with these pieces that we've been talking about. And if we stay consistent with that, the universe gets the message, and now you're on the rock station. Does that make sense?
It does, and it kind of brings to me a couple of questions that I can combine into a nice two-part question. Is we talk about present moment, and everybody has their own vision or definition of present moment. So I'm curious for you how you use that term. And the other question is, because we're multi-dimensional and multi on the quantum field with stuff, if we're on path and say a timeline on your quantum timeline does something that changes something and you are going off path, can you change that, or do you not realize it and just go?
The way it works, think of it this way. When you become aware of it, you already begin to change it. But it's these pieces we've been talking about that we need to do on a consistent basis to transform it, let's say, permanently. So the old is gone, the new program is in, and now you are consistently staying in that frequency of abundance, or the, relationships, or, in terms of good communication, like all the things that make a good relationship, whether it's friendships, family, business relationships, or whether it's, marriage relationships, things like that, right? So does that make sense?
It does, but the way I'm looking at it is like the Mandela effect, where you something was in path and you knew it, but then you're off path, but you have no memory of the path that you really wanted.
Well, without the awareness, you wouldn't know that you wanted the other path because it's kind of like hidden. It's almost like those traumas that get buried emotionally, right? We stuff it down and we don't even know it's there until it comes up and we're like, whoo, where'd that come from? in life sometimes. But essentially, those aspects, like when we first become aware of it, like I said, that's when we can shift things. But anytime that, okay, for example, let's say someone was on a path of abundance, but then let's say got into a relationship with someone who made them feel not worthy, and they started going into that scarcity mindset emotionally about themselves and things like that, and it trickled into their business. And so now they weren't making that much money. Does that make sense?
It does.
Right? Now, what if she got her confidence back and everything, and she went and she created her abundance again? Right? So the path isn't fixed. You can always switch it up. Does that make sense? So it's not like if you were going down let's say, a low vibration path and you didn't realize it. It's not like at any time that you couldn't, just become aware and go, oh, you know what? And make a complete U-turn right here. Whoop! I'm on a high frequency. Here I go. Like, you can do it just like that. Your awareness is what shifts it. And it's what we do to be consistent in being in the present moment and working on those subconscious programs to create the new neural pathways, right? We have to have that internal alignment for us to have the external alignment that we're looking for in terms of what we want to manifest, how we want to feel, and the kind of life that we want to lead. Does that make sense?
It does. And
so it's not like one decision messes it all up for something else. We can shift it at any point in time. It's our awareness that allows us the opportunity to say, oh, wait a minute, let me look at this. Let me reflect on this. Let me see what I can change about this. Does that make sense? And that's when we do these different things. Like in my book, I've laid out like everything from intuition to the subconscious, how to reprogram. I go into the different aspects of how to embody the manifestation and things like that. So it really does go through everything like that. But I do understand what you're saying. In terms of the quantum, like there really is so much unknown that we're not going to be able to connect every single dot in terms of, you know, Mandela effect and different things. And I know that those things happen, right? But in this sense, like, does that make sense where it's like we're not on a fixed path that can't be changed?
That was what I was wanting to get out there, because everybody thinks that the future's cast in stone, or
Nope,
once
it
you
never
make a
is.
choice, it's done, and you have to go through the consequences. And so that's, I'm a proponent of, we're always at the choice to change the path. It's a choice, but it's always nice when other people share it in other ways. And so I appreciate that from you. And the reason I was asking you about the living in the moment, or being in the moment, present moment, is because I know for some people, present moment means, oh, I'm here right now. This is where I'm at. And in my instance, it's this is where my past, present, future, all quantum timelines are crossing at this intersection in this moment. This is the present moment.
We only have the present moment. Every moment is the present moment. When we talk about the future, and I'm going to put it in air quotes, well, when it comes, what is it? The present moment. See, we can relive cycles from the past through our subconscious programs and things like that, so we can keep repeating the same things within our life. But we can, when we switch things up like that, we like I said, like nobody has a fixed, like doomsday. Like that's not the case. And a lot of times when someone is looking to level up, a lot of times things around them will seem like it's all falling apart. But what's happening is when they start to raise their vibration, they're doing this work. Things in lower vibrations. Remember, I said if you're on the country station, you ain't on the rock station. Well, if you're on your way to the rock station, you're doing the work, you're getting that consistency in, so that way you start predominantly putting out that frequency. Then you'll start to see the synchronicities start to come back to you, reflected from the universe. But the universe has to kind of hear it for a little bit, see the consistency in your actions, the consistency in the frequency, and then when it's sure, okay, you know what, he's pretty consistent, that's when you'll start to see it in the physical world. You'll start to see the synchronicity. You'll meet the people you need to in business. You'll meet like that cool new friend. You were thinking, oh, I want this friend who loves baseball like me, and then boom, 2 days later, you meet the coolest friend, and you guys are friends for 10 years. You're like for like decades or whatever. You know what I mean? So does that make sense a little bit?
It does, and the one question too that I have, I'm trying to figure out how to put it into words, because it comes from somewhat of your book, and not having had read it yet kind of makes it hard to formulate the question. But you talk about the quantum blueprint. How do we find this quantum blueprint and be able to make changes if we so choose? I know everything is energy, but how do we know when we found the blueprint?
It's when you can master your emotional intelligence, you can master being in the present moment, you will automatically continue to rise. Like every time we do any inner work, anytime we do anything, we elevate. Like we actually blink in and out of this reality, okay, to source and back again, like billions and billions and billions and billions of times per like nanosecond or something. Like it's crazy, right? And every time we do, we're blinking in with a certain frequency. Like I said, what we're predominantly putting out there, right? So that consistency. If we're always in a low vibration, right? Then that's the frequency that we're predominantly putting out, and so we tend to see the same things. So, like I said, it really is that internal alignment, having that heart and brain coherence, because that gives us the ability to be able to tap in deeper to our own intuition, to be able to trust in ourselves. Like I said, having our nervous system and alignment within our body systems, that's really important, right? And when it comes to being in the present moment, like when it comes to our blueprint, the more that we can have that full alignment, okay, our frequency, we will be able to manifest the things that we want to manifest. Every time that we're, like every day, we're different people than we were before. So just like when we, put effort into learning something and we get better and better and better, this is the same way. As your awareness goes up, your consciousness goes up, your frequency goes up. Because all that happened, your awareness again goes up, your consciousness goes up, your frequency goes higher again. And so your baseline frequency keeps going up. The ease in which you can manifest gets easier, and you have that peace and joy and feeling within you. That's when you know that you've hit the blueprint, because you have that. You're not looking externally for validation. You feel it within yourself. You love yourself enough. You respect yourself enough. You're in that high vibration alignment. Does that make sense?
It does, and thank you for that. And we actually have a question in the chat room for you.
Sure, absolutely.
At Surface Planet Radio is asking, how do you live peacefully without stress while knowing all the negative things that are happening and have happened on Terra?
Perspective is one thing, and I can explain it like when we can emotionally take ourselves out of a situation, we can look at it objectively like an observer, as opposed to a person with the trauma. Does that make sense?
It
Right?
does.
And so when we can align our internal state, it allows us the emotional stability, our nervous system to be at calm. So when we master those things, then at will we can be in a flow state sweet spot. So we can go, okay, you know what? We recognize that there's those things out there. Is there something I can do to help that? Or am I in a position that there's nothing I can do? Okay, you know what? I can send some light and love their way, some beautiful heart energy their way, right? Anytime we send high vibrational energy, it is a ripple effect, and they will receive it, right? And so it's being able to look at things without expectation, right? So it's not about, it's a little bit hard to explain without going into a long explanation, because it kind of touches on a few different aspects of how we look at things in life. But for example, okay, if I was in a situation where somebody hurt me, right, I would have certain emotions to it. I would have certain thoughts to it. I could choose, okay, to be angry and resentful and everything, or I could be like, okay, I understand that when someone hurts someone else, it's because they have hurt inside of them and they're projecting it outwardly. Like the way we were talking about energy, right? We put negative energy out, we kind of get negative stuff back. We put good energy out, we kind of get good stuff back, right? And it's the same idea, but when someone's hurting inside, like when you see a bully hurting someone, that person has a hurt inside of them, but they may not be aware of it, and they're projecting that hurt outwardly, right? And so when we can take a step back and be able to see it from an observer standpoint, so yes, we can empathize, have compassion, we can have heart, but we also are able to separate ourselves emotionally from that and be in that high vibration because we've been able to balance our emotions, balance our nervous system. It's kind of like, think of how when a doctor who's in the emergency room, right? They're usually there because they are quick thinking on their feet when everything is chaotic, right? And that's partly because they are able to balance their emotional state and probably had some type of training to be able to stay calm. Or they could be innately like that. Does that make sense? So we can learn to be in calmer states. We can learn to be in higher vibration. And so we're not taking on the emotion of the sad things or the bad things that happen to us. Or, for example, like I said, if someone had hurt us, right, we can understand we don't have to like what they did. Maybe they did something that was really not nice. But us taking vengeance on them, that's a low vibration too. So you know what I mean? It's just adding to the low vibration, and it's affecting us too because we're admitting that, right? So we can look at situations that, as bad as it is, what did we either learn? Was there some wisdom? Was there some experience that we can look at and go, you know what? As bad as that was, you know what? I became more resilient in this. I didn't like what happened, but but that helped to shape me into who I am. Does that make sense? So we can look at it from a different perspective. But again, it's doing some of this inner work, right? Like we want to be able to raise our vibration, work with these things. But that's sort of like over time, we have more awareness. We see things from that more observer standpoint. So we're not attached to the outcome. We're not attached to the trauma. And we can start to connect those dots and be able to calm the body again, because we're having that because we're in those old pattern loops. Not just the programs, but the body goes through the same chemical dump. So if it's negative emotions or anxiety, things like that, the body's going to produce cortisol and all these different chemicals that keep us feeling in those states. But if we be in the present moment, we can feel into a moment of gratitude and love, which is very high vibration. Just focus on our breath, or focus on our heart, or just focus on the sounds that you hear, or focus on what does your skin feel like on what you're sitting on or lying down on. Whenever we focus on something within our body or our senses, it takes us out of our mind thought, and it keeps us in the body, in the senses, in the present moment. And when we practice that, it's like training all the different parts of our body to be in that calmer state as our natural way. And so when a thing comes up that's chaotic, we're able to emotionally bounce easier. We can deal with it easier. We can step into action easier. Does that make sense?
It does. And
it's a very basic explanation of it, but I know like time-wise, but like I said, it's really laid out in the book, like with the science and psychology and everything in there too. But I'm just trying to kind of get like more the concept out there a little bit, just so that people can see a little bit of how these things do interconnect. And so once we are aware of, hey, you know what, I got to look at these things, reflect on this, and what steps can I take, right? And that's doing different things to be in the present moment. Like I said, it can be as simple as focusing on your breath, like those things I was mentioning. It could be, like I said, put on some music that you really like, that gets you just wanting to rock. And just get up and move your body. Negative energies that are blocked in our chakras will begin to move. And then we can do that work to be in the present moment and things like that and focus on releasing that negative energy. Right? I always talk, there's actually in my book, in every single chapter, so the first chapter, for example, is on intuition and understanding how to begin to tap into our internal GPS, right? And that goes through everything about intuition and how to be able to raise your intuition, tap into it deeper, and things like that. And after each chapter, I've included a couple of exercises that if you do those exercises and, read through the concepts and different examples that I say, hey, try writing it this way. And I give examples of reframing the subconscious mindset. And like I'm telling you, man, it's jam packed. But every single one has a few exercises at the end of each chapter to help with implementing and integrating what you went through in that particular chapter. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's really cool that you do that. And there's one concept you mentioned in your bio that I feel like we've kind of talked around but not really clarified. And
Neuro
if it's in
Transcendence.
your book, I'm thinking, if people hear how it's explained, it may help with the book and understanding. And that is quantum energy engineering.
Yeah, quantum engineer. Yeah, that term. The reason why I say it that way is because we're we're dealing with the quantum of things, right? When we talk about frequency and manifestation, right? Quantum entanglement and all these different things. And then the engineering is because we need to work on all the different internal systems. Think of like if you had a computer, right? If part of the computer is not working, you're going to have a problem, right? The same with the internal body. And so if different systems are offline, okay, then we need to get them back online. And so it's taking the different aspects from understanding how energy works and manifestation works. So that brings in your the engineering part because we're going internal systems, right? And then the quantum, like I said, because the quantum is entangled in everything that we do, everything that we manifest in our lives. So it's kind of, I explain it in the book, but in terms of, it's more just giving an idea, a concept of how we need to look at those internal systems. And once we get those in line, it's just like an engineer. They're going to go in there and work all those systems and make sure everything's online. When things are online, it works smooth, right? We take out the glitches, we take out the resistance. And so when we work on those different aspects, right? And like I said, like each chapter goes through a different part of it, but each one layers on the next, and it reinforces the things that you're learning. And so as you go through, like I said, it creates a compounding effect as you learn and integrate different exercises as well. But like intuition, it's going to help you to tap into your intuition. Then there's another chapter with self-love and acceptance, and that goes through the different aspects of increasing our awareness of our self-love and the different aspects of how we can begin to do that and understand why we kind of, got into that, not feeling worthy or not loving ourselves and things like that. So it gives the understanding on the science side, on the psychology side, and how these things actually, intertwine and how each system affects the other, right? So if our frequency is lower, it's going to affect our manifestation. It's going to affect our relationships. It's going to affect all the different aspects within our lives. And so, because sometimes people might work on mindset, for example, but they're not working on being in the present moment, or working on raising their frequency and things like that. Now, doing mindset work will help, but does that make sense how it's like, if you have, a broken leg, but you keep walking on it instead of using crutches or something, we're not fixing the problem. We're just kind of like mulling through it. Does that make sense? So we have
It
to,
does.
like the rest of the body will start to be achy because now we've made the leg worse. So now we're like walking funny more of the time. So other parts of the body get sore because now we're not walking in proper alignment. And so it's true for our internal systems. So our subconscious, our super subconscious, like the superconscious, our conscious mind, and aligning those things so that way we're working with our subconscious and our conscious mind. We're working with the coherence within our heart. We're working with increasing those vibrations. We're working with bringing in the nervous system and bringing that to coherence, bringing that to the place of peace. So we don't have the internal chaos. And so we're vibrating a different frequency, and that changes what we have experienced and what we have come to us in terms of opportunities, people, and things like that in a much higher vibration. So it is a process to work through those things, but it's the consistency in doing it and working all of those internal systems that have to be in alignment for us not to be throwing ourselves a little bit out of whack, where we take a step forward and 2 steps back or 2 steps sideways, and we're like, wait a minute, isn't this a straight line? But it's not always a straight line. It's these internal pieces that if we work on those in unison, then our progress is incredibly fast. Our awareness and all those shifts I was talking about, that every time we have awareness, consciousness increases, frequency increases, our abundance increases, like all these things increase. And because it did, now we have more awareness. So now we go through the process of integration, right? We continue to do these things. And again, after a period of that integration, we're now up permanently as a new baseline in that higher frequency. So it's like you're going through different radio stations. You're like, I don't want the country. Let's try the disco. Let's go to a higher frequency. I want to, rock. Yeah, there we go. Do you know what I mean? And so as you continue, it's not a one and done. It's a practice, right? It's like keeping your mind sharp, keeping your body sharp. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. We need to continue being in the present moment. And like I said, it's as simple as you can walk in nature. That will help you be in the present moment. Listen to music, dance, and like I said, anything that brings you into the body. So any of your senses, or just simply focus on your breath, or just put your hand on your chest, right where your heart is, so you can kind of feel it there, and just lie back, close your eyes, and just take a few deep breaths. I always suggest to people, so you just put your hand on your heart and focus on just your heart beating and just be in gratitude because, it's just beating and putting blood all the way through your body so that way you're feeling good and everything. So just, give it a little bit of gratitude and just be in that space of your heart and just take a few deep breaths. And I always suggest to people, however long you can take the breath is fine, but I always suggest, let's say if you took a breath of like three seconds, hold it for about 6 seconds, so about twice as long. And then if you can, extend that a little bit when you blow it out and just blow it out slowly. So breathe in for 3, hold for 6, and blow out longer than 6 if you can, but slowly. And I always say to people, think of like if you had a straw in your mouth and you were blowing through the straw. And the equivalent would be about your pinky finger. The width of the end of your pinky finger is about what I'm talking about. So you just purse your lips open, just that space-wise, and blow the air out like that, as if you're blowing it through a straw. And that automatically tells your nervous system to calm the heck down. And and you're able to be in that present moment. Does that make sense?
It does, and I just tried it and held for 30 seconds and started getting a little headache in the back.
Well, you don't hold it for so long, right? Like if you take a breath in, like 1, 2, 3, hold. Like if you can't hold for 6, that's okay. Hold for 3, right? But if you can, so if you breathe in for 3, hold for 3, and then if you can, blow out for 6. So you're just going to blow it a little bit slower, just until you expel the air, but just through the straw. So however long you can blow out, right? But as you do that more often, it'll become easier and easier for you to do it.
Yeah.
But that
It's-
practice of doing that actually signals to your nervous system and your body that, hey, you're safe. And when we begin to train the body to be safe, that works in unison when we're switching up those programs, when we're raising our vibration. So does that make sense when we're talking, because we're talking quantum engineering, but within ourselves for that alignment? And once we do that, the external begins to match our internal.
yes, it does make sense. And we're actually approaching an hour and a half.
Yep.
And so
That's a wrap.
I just wanted to give you time and opportunity to share where you can get the book and your website.
Okay. For the book, you can look up just High AF Advantage, or you can look up Nikki Girard. It should pull up the names there. But we do have in the bottom there should be a link for the book, is it not? I know
There
there's
is.
other links. Yeah, so people can click on there and it'll take you there. There's also links there. I have a Clubhouse group. I have a couple hundred people in there as well. And we talk about this stuff and we go deep, and I do hot seat coaching and everything so people can get real time help in a situation that they're dealing with and things like that. So we actually do go deep into these different concepts and even the concepts that are in the book and things like that. So if people are interested, because we've kind of like really taken a really broad stroke across it, and we've like put so many different ideas and concepts in there. But when I'm actually, doing the lives with people, like we're actually, breaking down certain concepts, and we're taking like time to be able to explain that. And I take questions from people and things like that as well. But and then also they can also follow me on my Facebook. That is the platform I'm predominantly, and I've just started a Substack. So it literally, I'm the first subscriber. So if anyone would like to join and be my second, third, fourth, fifth, 100th, and beyond, please do. I would love it. I always post a lot of things that help with personal development and all these things we're talking about. Yep, you'll get lots of content and information from me, and a lot of inspiration and high AF advantage vibes for everyone. That's the way it is. But yeah, please take a look through the links. There's different things like that, like I said. But please do get the book. Like I said, the way it's laid out, it goes through all the different aspects of this quantum engineering, the internal systems. And like I said, each chapter has exercises, concepts, explanation, examples, everything. And you can reread it. I've made it like so it's a guide you can keep going back to as you go through the process and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for
And
doing
each
that.
chapter layers onto the next and reinforces what you just learned in chapter one. You go into chapter two and you're like, oh, that's how that integrates into the self-love and acceptance. And then, later on you get into epigenetics and you get into all the different, vortex synergy, talking about vortexes within us and externally in our external world and things like that, and how all these things actually do connect. And like I said, it's based in science, psychology, cutting edge, quantum physics and unified theory and all these different things. So please get the book. I put a lot of time into that, and it's like my 40 years of understanding all these different aspects, from human behavior, understanding how the mind works, the body, and how energy works, and how we can manifest things in our life, and what are the things that we need to get in alignment within our internal systems, so we begin to raise that frequency within ourselves, and so we align our own frequency with our awareness, with those steps, and with those changes that we make. So we make changes, there's a ripple effect, and as we stay consistent, and that's our predominant frequency, the universe goes, woohoo, they're ready. Let's give it to them. And then you start seeing synchronicities coming left, right, and center. You feel like the luckiest dude on the street. You're like, I don't know what I did this week, but damn, it's happening for me. This is freaking awesome. Like, I don't get it, right? Your awareness, you do the work, you get the results. That's
Right.
it. No excuses, just results. I'm allergic to BS. This book has no fluff, no BS, no long, drawn out stories about me. You want to hear stories about me? Come in my group and ask me a question. But in my books, you are not going to see that. These are guides to help people step through the process, raise their vibration, and get what they want in life: the peace and happiness, the freedom, the time freedom, financial freedom, the peace and love within their family and relationships. That's what it's all about. It's about helping everyone rise. And I know that I can't coach everybody all at the same time, so I wrote the book. You can't mentor with me, and I do have a few spots available for 2026. They're going to fill fast. First come, first serve. But if anybody wants to get on a call, please reach out to me on the Facebook or something like that. Reach out or on my email and get on a call. We can, talk about what it looks like to work with me. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going to be bringing up a program soon and things like that as well. So if you are connected on my Facebook or my Clubhouse, you'll get all the information, or my Substack as well. And my website is there. I'll be updating that as well with all the latest things, so you can also stay connected there as well. So any of the links, come see me. We're going to raise the vibration. That's what we're going to do.
Very cool. And as you know from being a fan of my shows, there's this one moment where I have a message for you. Yeah, we've come to that moment. And so, from my heart and the heart of my show, thank you for what you're doing for humanity. It is seen, it is heard, and we are aware.
Thank you so much, Michael. And like I said in the beginning, so much gratitude for you for what you do, and bringing me on the show and let me yappity yappity yap to all your beautiful people. And I really hope that people got at least some insights. And like I said, we kind of took it really broad, but when we start breaking it down into its pieces, it really is simplified in how we can actually manifest the things we want and raise our vibration. It's just that we didn't know what we didn't know, and nobody taught it to us. So how the heck could we have known? You don't know what you don't know, so you didn't know there was something to know. So you're just walking through life going, oh, I don't know, right? But once you do know, you got the awareness, you're like, ooh, hot damn. It's like, okay, I think I got it going on. I understand this stuff. Now I just got to take the time, do the work, stay consistent. I always say, bingo, bango, there you go. Whenever, like my clients have breakthroughs and stuff, or the epiphanies or the awareness, sometimes they'll be like, oh, you know what? Remember I told you the other day, the awareness was just so heightened, the intuition, oh yeah, everything. And the love that I feel is just overflowing and everything. And I told you that I think this is the max. I think like I got to them, and I said, no. I said, it's always going to keep increasing. She'll come back a few days later and she's like, remember I said that? I'm like, yep. And she'll be like, it increased again. I said, I know. And I just start laughing, right? And that's what I'm talking about. You stay consistent in doing this, keeping that alignment within yourself. You just get better.
Yes, and thank you.
Happier, you've got the vibe, and you got it all going on. And you with your show, and like I said, so much gratitude for what you do. You spread so much truth out there, so much love for your people, so much dedication, and the time that you put into all that you do and all that you've learned, and acquiring your expertise and wisdom, and how you bring that together. And I love your inquisitive questions, and they're beautiful. And yeah, we get the same thing in my club. A lot of people do like 2 or 3 part questions, and we just break it down. So like I said, if people want to get like a little bit more down in the grit of like more detail and like actually step by step, I literally do that in my group. And actually, if you join my Clubhouse, even now, right, there are replays there on different topics. Like I talk about the ping pong effect. That's actually in the book. You can go there and listen to me teach about it, and actually work with people with that concept in real time. But it's recorded, of course. But I'm going to be doing new live ones soon as well. So if you join, you'll get notifications of when we have new events coming up, which I'm going to be doing twice a week again. So you can come in
And
live, ask your questions, all that stuff. It's we have a blast. We laugh a lot. It is so much fun.
well, and as I say sometimes, because I don't always remember this part, follow, like, and subscribe to this channel because you never know when Nikki's going to be back.
And I would love to come back. I know we already talked about that. We're like, yep, 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 yep. But I think, does your audience want me to come back? I don't know. Are they saying anything? They want Nikki to come back?
Well, I'm actually going to put a challenge out to the audience that's watching this, whether live or on replay, is if there is a topic that you feel like we kind of brushed over too quickly and you want us to go more in depth on, leave it in the comments. I will talk with Nikki about it and we will make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. Because, like I said, today we kind of went like really broad just to kind of like connect some dots. So, just conceptually, so people can kind of get an idea. But yeah, definitely, we can like break it down into a different aspect of what people want to talk about. And we can do like the whole show and people can be asking their questions and things. It'll be beautiful.
And just in transparency, I'm in Texas and Nikki's in Canada, so do, keep in mind, some things may be a little different concept wise because of territory. Like, she may talk about financial in a different way than we do. Just keep it in mind and know that it will transfer over. So, oh, and Surface Planet Radio says come back.
So that's a yay from there. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
So thank you to everyone in the chat room, and we would love to keep going, but it's getting late. As I mentioned, she's an hour ahead of us, and so she's got work to do. So I'm going to be respectful of that, and we're going to cut it here and say goodnight, and come and watch the next episode next week. And until then, fill your day with hope and laughter. And make
high
it great.
AF vibes. High AF vibes added to that. Little high vibration added. And big smiles. I always say, remember to smile. That's like my tagline. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference. You know when you do the big smile and you squint your eyes? Yeah, it signals to your brain to give you chemicals and endorphins and all that to make you feel good. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference. So smile anyway. It'll make you feel better.
There you go.
There you go. Big old smile. So thank you again, Michael. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for your participation. And thank you for asking me to come back. Michael and I will work out the details, and yeah, he'll let you know. Thank you, thank you. And if you guys follow me, it'll be beautiful. I'd love to see you in the group, in the clubhouse. And if you get the book, please throw a review in there. I would love it. It'll allow other people to know what's going on in that book and how it's helping you. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to say good night, everyone.
Good night.